Using a pencil, and I've got a rubber, I'm going to be using the shading technique of hatching and cross hatching to actually create this apple. I'm going to draw the apple as you see it. It should be the same angle. All you need is a pencil, and obviously you need to work out where the light source is. So if you look at the apple as I'm looking at it, you will see that the light source is coming from above. So I'm just going to draw the apple out as I see it. The core or the stalk rather would have been here. As you can see, mine has been removed. So remember, hatching is lines that form the shape of the object that we are drawing. And I've chose to do hatching because if you look at the apple, there are loads of lines which form the colour of a very shiny, gorgeous, scrumptious apple. Okay, I'm constantly looking. I'm not going to worry too much about accuracy of the lines that are formed on this apple. This is purely to show you how to draw an object using tonal shading to create the form of what you are drawing. Because if you draw it flat, it doesn't give you the emphasis of the shape of the object. So I'm working on the inner part of the apple now, the top, and we have some darker tones, so I'm medium pressure on the outer side. Here we've got our darker tones, and darker even so at the bottom. Obviously we've got the lighter areas and these stripes here of the colour of the skin of the apple. Right, so let's begin. So if I work on, and look, we've got some light source here as well, but that's where we can start to use the smudging technique, which I love, as you all know. So I'm just going to add, the detail can come in right at the end. So those little flecks of colour that you see on the apple, we can add those later on. I just want to get the tonal shading in. So the darker areas I'm going to include now. It becomes quite dark. When you're drawing an object, even if you're doing a still life, which is what we're doing here, you will constantly be reflecting what you're drawing onto your page. So you're constantly looking up, looking down, making sure that what you're drawing is reflected in your sketch. As I say, we're not looking for accuracy. This is to show you how to draw an object using your tonal ranges. So as you can see, I'm leaving this top area because you've got light reflecting on the top. So I'm going to start to introduce some mid-tones. And as you can see here, there's lighter areas, so I'm going to try and avoid that area. We have the reflection from my table on the side of the apple to the left. The darker areas are obviously at the bottom here. Then we go around the edges. The edges are quite dark, right around the side there, because the light is reflecting off the table onto the apple. I'm going to do some darker tones here. As you can see, my shading is showing that what I'm drawing, which is the apple, is round. Yeah, I'm not drawing straight lines, they're not flat. Every line that I'm drawing has a curve to it, and it's being created by hatching, which if you haven't seen it already, there's a video on how to use hatching. A little bit of shading around the edges there as well. Don't be afraid to add other shading techniques in here as well, because I'm actually including some scribbling. I like to call it scribbling. Okay, then I'm going to come in the centre here at the top, add some more tonal range there, darker tones, and there, and then it comes. I'm only using one shade pencil, I'm not even going to change the pencil at all, you don't need to, not at this stage anyway. Okay, right, now I'm going to start to add some detail. You'll notice I start to do some cross hatching in areas, so that's going over in a different direction from what I initially used previously. Always following the shape of the apple there, yeah? So we go round. You use the technique, the shading technique that you're happy with. If you want to just continue using the hatching, which is just the lines, then do so. If you want to start to introduce cross hatching like I have, then do that. It's whatever you're happy with. Right, I've got some darker areas around the edges here. And at the bottom, obviously, right, let's add some detail. Right, so we have flecks up here, lines, and here. So I'm pressing really hard with my pencil to get those darker tones in there. And here. Doesn't have to be precise, as I say, it's just a guide. I'm not being too meticulous with this. It just gives you an idea of when you're drawing a still life, make sure you concentrate on the shape, the form of the item or that you are drawing. You know, is it rounded? Is it square? If it's square, then you would not be drawing in curved lines or sketching in curved lines. You'd do them flat. But you need to remember where the light source is hitting the square box. But I'll do a tutorial on that as well, so that you understand the meaning of that. It's all about where the light source is hitting your object to give you the 2D form at the end. If you don't know where the light source is, then just use your imagination. You know, if you want it to come on the right hand side, then obviously the left hand side is going to be the darkest areas. In this case, my light source is on the top of my apple, so the darkest areas around the edges. And obviously we've got lighter areas with green, which is the colour. We've got red and green as our apple. You know, even grab an orange out of the fridge, whatever vegetables or fruits you've got, put it on the table in front of you or on the floor, and you know, practice. Start to have a go at some of these shading techniques to form the object that you're drawing. Because all throughout art you will use shading techniques, and if you take it as a GCSE you will need to know these basic, very basic techniques. So tonal shading is a definite. When somebody says to you tonal shade, include tonal shading on that, that means light to dark, and to show us eventually the 2D form of the object that you're drawing is going to be shown with the shading that you've used, light to dark, to create the form. And in this case it is an apple which is circular, sphere shaped. Okay. Right, I don't have a fast forward on my phone, so by all means, if you wish to skip to the end, then do so. But basically that's what I'm trying to show you, is what I've achieved here is your tonal shading on an object will show you the 2D form of the object that you are drawing. Okay, I might use a little bit blending just to soften that up. As you will hear a train in the background, as I live right next door to a train track. Okay, so I'm now going to come in with a rubber. Remember I did say have a rubber to hand to pick out those shiny areas of our apple. Some in there as well, and there. And obviously that's the shading of at the front of the apple, that's the green. That's naturally there. So I'm now just going to emphasize where the stalk would have been. Let's go a little bit darker in there. Okay, so have a go, guys. There we are. My version using tonal range, light to dark, and using hatching and cross hatching as my shading technique to show you how to draw this lovely crunchy apple.